Hi, this is I'm on your side, Dr. Cora Strack here again. The following 2 points I'm just going to make about the what I call the blind spot or the protective disclosure blind spot, and I think they're material, particularly the first one, and that's called the prima facie barrier. I understand this is new in the 2022 Act and institutional control. So a major weakness within the protective, if you're just looking at it completely as an objective, and for fairness, just looking at it for fairness, it seems to me that this is a major issue here. So a major weakness within the protective disclosure system may arise through two consecutive procedural barriers. I was describing all the gates, that now are the obstacles that, the exhaustion of this sequence of barriers because of the adversarial nature of the whole framework, I think, and that has to be looked at, I think, if we're going to achieve any kind of reasonable redress or accountability or fairness for all involved in the system, but particular accountability. So a major weakness within the protective disclosure system may arise through two consecutive procedural barriers. So the first is the worker status barrier. Before the substance of the report of work wrongdoing is examined, the reporting person may be required to establish that they fall within the statutory definition of a worker and that the information was acquired in a work-related context, and that's disputable in a number of cases. Nevertheless, it's very narrow, and it can be the first gateway and the first closure of the concern of the alleged wrongdoer expressed by the reporting person. Where this gateway is interpreted narrowly, a serious allegation may be excluded without the wrongdoing itself ever being investigated, or no avenue existing to that investigation or to that wrongdoing being investigated. The second barrier is the prima facie assessment. A prescribed person under the 2022 Act or other suitable recipient must initially decide whether there is a prima facie evidence that a relevant wrongdoing may have occurred. In principle, this is intended to be a preliminary threshold rather than a requirement that the reporting person prove the entire case. Official guidance confirms that reporting persons are not expected to investigate the wrongdoing themselves or obtain definitive proof. They are required to report the information available to them on the basis of a reasonable belief. Responsibility for investigating the alleged wrongdoing rests with the recipient in theory. However, this protection may be weakened where the recipient controls the relevant records, has a close institutional relationship with the organisation concerned, or has a direct or indirect interest in the outcome. A circular process may then arise. I see this happening all the time, this circular thinking. I mean, it's very hard to spot, but once you spot it a few times, you can see how it arises. It's a real defence mechanism, really. It's defence. It's a real method used where people are very defensive or feel they have to be defensive. Again, I would say this arises from the adversarial nature of the whole process or the design. So a circular process may then arise. The institution controls the evidence. The institution or a body selected or connected to it determines whether enough or sufficient evidence exists to justify an investigation. Without an investigation, the reporting person simply cannot obtain the evidence held by the institution. The resulting absence of evidence may then be used to close the report and say that there is insufficient prima facie. You see the circularity of that. This creates a profound danger of institutional self-protection. The fact that an investigator or recipient is described as independent is not sufficient. Describing the key word here. Independence must be demonstrated through transparent appointment procedures, absence of material conflicts of interest, sufficient board terms of reference, access to documents and witnesses, procedural fairness, reasoned findings, and material external review. Where the supposedly independent body has a substantial institutional, financial, professional, or prior advisory relationship with the organisation concerned, and many of these people are working for the institution. So, none of these conditions are satisfied. The legitimacy of the prima facie assessment may be seriously compromised. Of course. I mean, what, he who pays the piper calls the tune. I mean, that's well known. This doesn't. Again, it's the defensiveness that they feel that they even if they want to be independent, they feel the loyalties and all the other things, whether it's can come into it, and they feel that maybe their own job could be compromised if they were genuinely independent. So this does not establish that every internal prescribed person assessment is improper. However, it does establish that the structure requires much stronger safeguards. At a minimum, the reporting person should receive written reasons for any decision that worker status has not been established or that no prima facie evidence exists. But if this is all controlled by the institution, where's the independence? I mean, they can make up any old story and just throw it at you, and you have to accept it. I mean, it seems to me that if there is any conflict at all with the organisation, to the person whom the wrongdoing is reported, there is conflict of interest, and therefore there are serious questions here that need to be addressed. There should be an independent right of review. A conflicted organisation should not control the selection of the investigator, the evidence supplied to that investigator, or the terms of reference. And this is not, in my experience, the vast majority of protected disclosures are carried out by people within the organisations to where the disclosure is made. Sure, that's no accountability. I mean, that's a flawed design. Allegations involving senior management, systemic wrongdoing, evidence concealment, or institutional omission should be transferred automatically to a genuine external body. I mean, they're very, very serious. The reporting person should not be required to prove matters where the evidence is under the exclusive control of the institution accused of the wrongdoing. The protective disclosure system should facilitate investigation of credible information. It should not allow threshold classifications to substitute for investigation. Otherwise, the reporting pathway may contain two locked doors. First, the reporting person may be told they are not legally a worker. Secondly, they may be told they have not produced enough evidence for an investigation by the very institution that controls that evidence. This is not an effective route to accountability, and it is another protective and very serious disclosures blind spot.